What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 6 of Spill the Tearal, a JRPG podcast where we go over JRPG news, releases, upcoming games, what I've been playing, mechanics, top lists, and more. And this episode is going to be a fun one. I don't know why I said that. There's nothing specifically special about this episode, but first things first, let's just get into some housekeeping, which is pretty much me just talking about what I want before we get into the actual podcast. One thing I did want to mention for fun is the video I put out, which was a cutout of last episode. I mentioned this before on previous episodes where like I cut out segments to make them into their own videos because they probably will get out to more people. They'll probably perform better and things like that, and hopefully lead people to this podcast too. And there was a video I put out talking about the NPCs. So if you watched last episode, I had a conversation about how I think NPCs could be better. So I just wanted to mention this because I put that video out. I was hoping it would do something like the Project Mugen video. If you didn't know, last week one of the cutouts was about Project Mugen, and that did like fucking fantastic compared to my normal views. Like if my normal views are like 30 to 50 and that's a good video, Project Mugen was like 700 or something. So that was like an amazing success. And so I wanted to see how the NPC video would do, and unfortunately that did complete garbage. It was like almost no views. But I changed the title to be kind of more vague because I know that's a thing on YouTube, and it's doing a lot better now. It's like in the hundreds or 100 something. So I just thought I'd mention that if you're wondering why the title is kind of vague. So yeah, it was an NPC video. I kind of made a tantalizing thumbnail, kind of like comparing Trails and Persona, and then the title was I thought already kind of like not as direct as I would like. If in a perfect world, I would just name it something like how can NPCs be better in games, or something that sounds better, but something like that. But I think I named it like NPCs done well and done wrong, how can they be better, something like that, just so like it's kind of more exciting. But I ended up just changing it to I believe it was the secret to good storytelling ... and now it's doing good. So you really have to be like shittily vague with your titles, unfortunately, on YouTube for it to perform well, but that's why it's like that. I'm not a fan of it, but it's something we got to do. So I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was funny where like, yeah, I had to keep making the title less and less accurate. It's still accurate. I will never make a title or thumbnail which is like has nothing to do with the video. That's something that's a line I'm not gonna cross. But I did have to go pretty vague with the title for it to start getting traction. So yes. Another thing I want to mention, I'm not sure why I didn't mention this on last episode, but it was already ready by last episode. But Spill the Tearal is now on all the major audio services that I would want it to be on. So the podcast service that I use kind of used to disseminate my podcast everywhere automatically. That's how it worked for Shotlock, my Kingdom Hearts podcast. But they were bought out by Spotify since then, and Spotify just kind of fucked it up in a lot of ways. And so you have to manually pretty much disseminate your podcast even if you use the service. And so I got it on all the major ones. I have it on Apple Podcasts. I have it on Amazon Music. I have it on Spotify. Some smaller ones, I believe, I never really heard of, honestly, like iHeartRadio, Radio Public. I was gonna say, I have in my notes that it's not on Google Podcasts because they kind of suck. Because pretty much whenever I uploaded my podcast to these services, it took either 2 minutes to get up or it was up immediately for all the podcast services. Google Podcasts literally took nearly a month. Like last week, it wasn't up, and by then it had already been like 2 or 3 weeks. And I checked this morning, and now it actually is up on Google Podcasts. So like, it's on Google Podcasts too. If you're interested, all the links should be in the description if you want to find it on a certain service, or just search Spill the Tearal on any of them, and you should be able to find it. But yeah, it's up. The Google podcasting is weird because like, I don't know if it's going to be up there for that much longer, because they literally have a notice on the top saying like it's going to be gone in 2024 anyway. So like that might have been a battle that I didn't really need to win. But yeah, it's on podcast services. There are already people listening on podcast services, which is very, very cool to me, because I don't know how podcast services work in terms of how they get disseminated to people. Like I don't know how average people find podcasts. I just the podcasts I listen to are pretty much YouTubers or content creators that I already watched who end up making podcasts, and that's the ones I listen to. So I guess that could be the same with me if people watch me on YouTube and find my podcast. But if there are just people who just listen to my podcast, I'd be interested in knowing about that. But yes, I am on all the audio services I wanted to be on, so that is cool. And if there is an audio service, I guess, that I'm not on and you want me to be on, let me know. I just pretty much went on the ones that my podcast service recommended, but I'm sure there may be more that I don't know about. So if there's a specific one, let me know, and then I can look into it and put it on that. But yeah, that I think does it for housekeeping. So we can move on to the first segment of Spill the Tearal, which is what I'm playing. So what I've been playing in the last week is the same thing as last episode, which was the same thing as last episode, which is Final Fantasy Crisis Core and Final Fantasy VII Remake. And so I've progressed in both of them a decent amount. I'm probably going to finish some of them by next episode. We'll see. But Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, I've been playing that. I am now 92% done according to PlayStation's percentage number. I believe last time I was done like 70% of it, and I was purposely delaying it, like not playing the game, because I wanted to get farther in 7 Remake, because I was like barely into the game, but now 7 Remake I'm pretty far into now. I'm almost done that too, so I want to go back to Crisis Core. And so I played some Crisis Core. I'm pretty much at the end because I am 92% done. I had mentioned, I believe I mentioned this last episode, or I might have mentioned this in my Let's Play, but I was very curious to see why Sephiroth was bad, because so far in Crisis Core, Sephiroth, honestly, he might have been like one of my favorite characters, at least in terms of the firsts, like Angel, Genesis, Sephiroth. I like Sephiroth the best. He just seemed cool. He seemed like a good, like he wasn't a fucking villain like the other two, but he is technically a villain now. And so I always liked him. He seemed calm and cool. So I was really curious to see what pushed him to be a villain, because I didn't know if he just turned into a villain at some point, or was he always a villain and he was just hiding it. And so that was revealed. I guess spoilers for Crisis Core for the next few minutes if you care about that. But pretty much, yeah, Sephiroth becomes a villain. It's not like he was bad. He became bad when he learned more about his ancestry. He's an ancient technically, and because of that he believes he should rule over the world. That's pretty much what it is. And the thing that's more curious to me, and the reason why I want to finish more of Crisis Core before I got back into 7 Remake, farther into 7 Remake, is I want to see why Sephiroth and Cloud have beef. Because obviously in 7 Remake there's a clear, opposition between the two, where Cloud is always having like flashbacks of Sephiroth and Sephiroth's haunting him. And I was wondering like what happened between these two, because in Crisis Core clearly these two are just strangers. Like there are literally scenes where like there's literally scenes where Sephiroth is talking to Zack, and in the background you just see Cloud standing as part of the other Shinra troops. And it's very weird how they're like complete strangers. They see each other, like they know of each other, I guess, but there's literally no connection between them. And I was wondering like how do you go from that to what you have in 7 Remake, where they're like clearly just enemies now and have a hatred for each other, I guess. And I was wondering like how that happened. And it was funny because I know now I now know the answer. And it's funny how it's just completely like circumstantial the way it happened, whereas like if like very specific things didn't line up, like Cloud wouldn't be the Cloud we know today. Like if there was another Shinra trooper in his spot, like that Shinra trooper might have been the Cloud of today, where like you have to have I would say it was like the three things lining up, where it had to be where the Genova Mako reactor was in Cloud's home village. It was Tifa going into the reactor, and it was Tifa getting attacked by Sephiroth. It was those three things lining up which caused Cloud to kill Sephiroth. I don't know if he killed him because I know he's in 7, and that's how like the opposition happened. And so if any of those things were different, there would be no 7. Like if the Genova reactor wasn't in Nibelheim, then Tifa wouldn't go in, and then Cloud wouldn't really have beef with Sephiroth. If Cloud wasn't on the mission where Zack went to Nibelheim, then like Cloud wouldn't be there to stab Sephiroth. Like there's very specific things that had to line up for Cloud to become who he is, and I just find that very cool. Where like at least not for right now, I don't know, but like it doesn't seem like Cloud is like some like special chosen one where like Sephiroth, Genesis, and Geo, like they're all like weird, like the way they were born. There's like certain specifics about it. But with Cloud is like, nope, he just happened to be a Shinra trooper here, and this reactor of Sephiroth's mom happened to be in his village, and Tifa happened to be attacked there, and so that's why Cloud's mad. And so yeah, I'm just like kind of really like happy with how the beef started, because it is very circumstantial. It is very like almost like normal. There wasn't like some like holier than thou cool ass freaking backstory where like Sephiroth was a kid and like dropped Cloud's ice cream or some fucking bullshit. But like it was just like, nope, this is what happened in the present, and that's why Cloud hates Sephiroth and why Sephiroth is haunting Cloud in 7 Remake. So I was really happy with that. And I'm also curious to see like, I don't know if this is going to happen in the remaining of Crisis Core, but like how does Cloud get to where he is in 7 Remake based on how he is in Crisis Core? Because pretty much after we fight Sephiroth, Cloud and Zack get taken by Hojo, and we're in these kind of like Mako tubes, and pretty much Cloud is like knocked out. He's kind of in some weird comatose state, and he has like severe Mako poisoning based on what Zack has said, and he's just knocked out. So I'm wondering like how he gets from that to 7 Remake, where like he's clearly perfectly fine. We know he's degrading because he's a soldier technically, but like he's fine, he can fight, he's fully awake and alert. So like what happened? Like, is there like a scientist that helped him, or did he just wake up naturally? Like, I'm very confused, because after the experiment happened, I was kind of exploring with Zach, and there was a report from a scientist I could read, and it pretty much said that Zach has strong tolerance to Genova cells, so he was kind of good, and Cloud had a weak tolerance to Genova cells, and that he's pretty much fucked. Like, he has no chance of recovery, pretty much, of ever becoming like a normal person again. And so because of that, I have some feeling that Cloud is special in some way. Like, there may be a backstory of him being special because he is fine after getting the treatment, and also there is a plotline right now of him having a certain type of cell, and he's the only one apparently who has it. So I'm not in the game, so I'm not sure like where that leads, but like there may be some specialness to Cloud. But yeah, I'm just really happy to see like the development of Cloud and Sephiroth, because I'm assuming when people play this game after they had played the original 7, this is kind of the stuff they want to know about, and I'm kind of learning it now. So it is really cool seeing the origins of that relationship. But yeah, I'm trying to see what else I want to talk about with this game. Yeah, so some other things I want to talk about is that's cool is there were some things when I was playing 7 Remake which I was kind of confused about, and they're kind of getting answered here. In 7 Remake, at the start there was like a flashback where Tifa was in the reactor kind of crying over like a dude's body, and she picked up the Masamune and walked away. I didn't know what that was about, and that pretty much happens here. They don't show the flashback, but like when Tifa goes into the reactor, you get an email from Cloud saying like, yo, Tifa went into the reactor with her dad, go help her. And so you kind of assume that off screen the dad got murked by Sephiroth, and that's what the flashback was about. So I thought that was very cool. I thought that one thing that is very weird to me that I kind of want to talk about because I don't know the answer to is during the dungeon when you're I believe it's under the mock reactor, or it might have been under the mansion actually, where like you're just exploring and you get to fight bad guys, and as you're fighting bad guys, every time you kill one you get a key to a coffin, and there's I think like 4 coffins in the dungeon, and I opened all of them and most of them were just kind of fakes, but one of them I opened, it opened up, you don't get to see inside, but Zach kind of comments saying like, oh, it's weird that this guy's asleep here, and then the coffin closes up and that's all. You don't learn anything more of that. Now, the reason I think this is weird, now I could be remembering completely wrong because I'm not going to go back and check this because I don't want to get spoiled, but when Rebirth was announced, I think there was a trailer at some point where there was a character, I think he has a red jacket and black hair, that I swear to God, I believe he woke up from a coffin. So was that him in Crisis Core? Is that who Zach looked at? I'm not completely sure because I can't remember if that trailer I'm remembering correctly where that guy did wake up from a coffin, and if he did wake up from a coffin, was that him in Crisis Core that was just sleeping under the fucking mansion for some reason? I thought that was like a very funny Easter egg where like if you didn't play Final Fantasy VII, like you have no idea what the fuck just happened in this situation. But I thought that was pretty cool if that is a reference to him, because I barely know about the dude, and I'm kind of remembering based on my shitty memory of the Rebirth trailer. So I can't wait to get into Rebirth and see if it is that character, and if it is, why he was down there in the first place, and what is he about, why is he sleeping in a coffin. So like it's very strange, but I thought like when that scene happened, that's the first thing I remembered, and I really want to get into Rebirth and see if I am remembering the right person, because there are like a lot of little things in Crisis Core where when I hear, I'm like, is this alluding to something, or is this like a part of a side mission, or is it part of Final Fantasy VII? Like so far there's been like a mention of like a guy who like rides a black chocobo from a couple of NPCs. I don't know who that is. There's been talk of it might be the same guy they're referring to from a place called Calm, I think it's KLM or something like that. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if they're referring to someone from FF7. I don't know if it's going to be in the remaining Crisis Core. I don't know if it's maybe in a side mission, because I'm not really doing the side missions that much in Crisis Core because I've been kind of breezing through it. But yeah, cool stuff, seeing how it possibly connects to 7 in these little ways. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to talk about Crisis Core. I was going to talk about the Sephiroth fight, but there's nothing really specific I want to talk about. I just thought it was cool, like the second phase of it where like you're able to get pushed off. And fun fact, that was the first time I died in the game. Like they had to give me the instructions saying like, oh, you're allowed to retry from here, or you can go back to the main menu. But yeah, I thought the Sephiroth battle was really cool and like challenging, even though I play like on normal mode. So yeah, I'm going to put an end to the Crisis Core talk. Actually, I'm gonna circle back to Crisis Core after talking about 7 for one more point, if I remember. But yeah, let's move on to FF7 Remake. With 7 Remake, I have been doing the Let's Play on it. I believe as of now there are 5 episodes released. In terms of recording, I am done recording 9 episodes in total, and each episode has been like 3 to 4 hours. So like there has been a lot more recorded than there has been edited because I just need to find the time to edit them. So that's where I am with that. I am done, I believe. It might be 77% or like in the 80s. Like I'm somewhere like pretty high up in terms of percentage. So I am a lot farther because previously I think I was only done like, I don't know, like 30%. Like I was barely into the game. And so I am getting a lot farther. I haven't been doing the side quests because I'm just trying to finish the plot so I can move on to Rebirth. I'm at the late stages of the game, I'm sure. Like the last part I can remember of 7 Remake from when I first played it was like the Shinra building stuff, and that's where I am now. So like if there is stuff that happens after it, I don't remember it, but like I am at the Shinra building, and there was a very cool cutscene I was looking forward to watching again, which was like the one where like it's CG and you're in the Shinra building and it's like all holograms and stuff, and it's about ancients. I'm very interested about ancients because it's coming kind of more forward in the story with like Aerith and in Crisis Core with Sephiroth, as I mentioned. And so, and another thing that really interested me, especially because I really think I'm getting a better experience playing this game because I'm playing Crisis Core and 7 at the same time, where like, so that cutscene happened in 7 Remake where they showed the ancients and they look like these almost elven-like creatures of the earth, and they're doing magic and shit, and like it looked like very, very nice, very happy before like the meteor hit. But in Crisis Core, while I was walking around, there was a scientist NPC. I talked to him and he pretty much just said like he noticed that the stuff that Shinra says about ancients, like the information they give people, is completely false. Like that's not how ancients are at all. And I thought that was very interesting because like the day after I got that NPC dialogue, I watched the cutscene in 7 Remake, and so what we watched in 7 Remake is potentially completely false in terms of like what ancients are, and I bet they are. Like this has to be some like idealized version. There's no way like they were like that cool looking, or like I'm sure it was like a normal society, but just like older. And so I'm very curious. I'm hoping like we get our answers about ancients at some point. I don't know if that's a thing in Crisis Core. I don't know if that's a thing in 7 Remake. I don't know if that's a thing in like the future of the 7 Remake line of games. So I'm very like, you know, invested in the ancient kind of storyline at this point and want to know more about it. But yeah, I thought the flashback with the ancients was cool. And I guess the thing I want to kind of like circle back with Crisis Core is, I mentioned this last episode where with 7 Remake, there is obviously the timeline divergence plotline where it is technically a different timeline from the original 7, and I had mentioned where they're pretty explicit with it in the plot, where like a second Cloud talked to Cloud saying like this situation happened different before and now you're gonna go another way. There's been a few more examples of that. I noticed Sephiroth saying something where pretty much something bad happened in 7 Remake, and Sephiroth came and he was like, oh, looks like you couldn't change it this time either, or something like that to Cloud. And I'm still not sure what Sephiroth is about in this game. Like I don't know if this is just in Cloud's head or what the fuck is happening. I don't know if he's alive or not. So like I'm very curious to see how that happens. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, and this could totally be not connected with the timeline divergence, but in Crisis Core I noticed there was a pretty much like before you fight Sephiroth, and the way you notice Sephiroth is bad is Zack wakes up in Nibelheim, and Nibelheim is completely on fire. It's completely like fucked up and is burned, and the assumption is pretty much everyone died, and Sephiroth is the one that did it. And so you go follow Sephiroth, you fight him in the reactor, blah blah blah, and I believe it's the next morning you wake up and Zack is like, why is Nibelheim completely fine? And Nibelheim is completely fine and is never brought up again. And I thought that was weird. I'm like, why isn't this being talked about? Like, why the fuck? Because after that, you stay in Nibelheim for a while with Cloud and you're kind of on the run. And it's never brought up, like, why is Nibelheim fine when it was completely on fire and damaged, like, a day or two or whatever before? So is that related to the timeline divergence? I have no idea if Crisis Core Reunion is playing along with the timeline divergence thing that's happening in 7 Remake, because that does seem very odd to me. It's like Nibelheim was clearly on fire when Sephiroth attacked it, and now it's completely fine. And I know Sephiroth is maybe related to the timeline divergence, maybe because he's an ancient or whatnot. So like, I don't know. When they said like when Zack said the town is completely fine, what I might do after I'm done playing Crisis Core is go back to the original Crisis Core, like a YouTube video, and see whether that cutscene was in it. Like in the original Crisis Core, did Nibelheim, was it magically fine after, or did it stay burned? Like I don't understand what happened in that part of the game. Again, this could not be alluding to the timeline stuff at all, and it could be something simpler that I just didn't notice. But like when that happened, I was like, is there like a timeline split off here where like technically, for some reason after Zack woke up, he's now in the different timeline where I guess Sephiroth didn't attack the town and he's technically alive now or something. Like, I don't know. Like, it was very confusing. But when that happened in Crisis Core, I just had to like note it down and I want to talk about it here. And so, yeah, I mentioned last episode, but the timeline divergence in 7 Remake is like the most interesting to me right now. And I can't wait to see how it's hopefully brought up more in Rebirth. And then once I'm done like the 7 Remake line of games, I do want to go back to FF7 and play it and see how it's different exactly. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what I've been playing. This took up a lot of time, but I think this is probably one of my most fun parts of the podcast because I just get to talk about and theorize the games I'm playing. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion. And now we can move on to the next segment, which is a JRPG that I'm looking forward to. So the JRPG that I'm looking forward to, it's funny because this game was just like announced and I don't know if it existed before this announcement. I had no idea about it and I'm very pleasantly surprised about it. But it is pretty much the Tokyo Xanadu New Project. I believe that's what it's being called right now. Now, if you don't know what Tokyo Xanadu is, I believe it came out like nearly 10 years ago and that's why they're kind of working on this game because it's been 10 years or almost 10 years. Tokyo Xanadu is a game made by Neon Falcom, which is the creator of the Trills games. And as you guys probably know, it is my favorite game series. And when I found out about Tokyo Xanadu, I was like, why don't more people talk about this? Because this is something I wish I knew about earlier, and it's pretty much it's the way I would describe it is if the developer took the systems of Trails of Cold Steel and the same engine and they just pretty much made a different game with it. Like it's a different setting, different characters, different world. It's just pretty much their own IP. I know there's been Xanadu games in the past. I kind of looked into it. They look completely different. Like it's very old style. Like the setting even looks different, looks more fantastical. Tokyo Xanadu very much is like it takes place in like modern day Tokyo. There is obviously some fantasy elements in terms of like demon type creatures and like these weird like dimension rift things happening, but like for the most part the setting is in modern Tokyo. But in terms of gameplay, it is literally Trails of Cold Steel. Like you have the bonding mechanics. The gameplay is very similar, though the only main difference is the combat is real time instead of turn-based. Even to the point where like I remember when I first played Tokyo Xanadu and I was like very confused about this because I played Tokyo Xanadu during the period where I was taking a break from the Trails game. So I played Trails of Cold Steel 1 and during my playthrough of 2 I kind of fell off and there was like a break for like a couple of years and that's when I played this game. And what was weird is I was playing Tokyo Xanadu and at some point you get to class and you have a teacher and she happens to be your cousin. And when I saw the teacher I was like, she looks familiar. I don't know why, but she does. And as I kept playing the game, it stuck out to me. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this teacher is a character from Trails. Like, she looks familiar. And it turns out it was. There's a character named Toa in the Trails of Cold Steel games who's a student. In this game, she's a teacher and your cousin. Like, they're the same model, like, but like she's slightly older in this game. Like, to the clothes, like she's wearing the same bow on her hair. And I'm like, what is this about? Like, if like, is the main character of the game who's a cousin of this teacher, is he in the same world as the Trails games? Like, I don't know what the fuck was going on. And so I Googled about it, and apparently it's just like, they just happened to use her model for this for some reason, and I was like, okay. Like, I was very confused about it, but like, pretty much I understood that this game was pretty much Neon Falcom just using whatever they could to make this new series. And I don't know if this was an Easter egg or this is just like they want to use a model for the teacher. But that was a funny connection where like they literally just took a character from the Trails games and put her in this, and there's zero connection to the actual Trails universe. It's just like they wanted to do that. But that's besides the point. Pretty much, it is very much like Trails, but it's its own characters, its own settings, its own story, and I really liked it. The only difference from the Trails games, honestly, is that it's not a long-running series where like the Trails games you kind of want to play all of them to get the full story, where like Tokyo Xanadu, it was its own game. It didn't like feel like it was gonna lead to a sequel or anything, and it's been a while since I played it, but like it was pretty much like you were a student in school, but like you had to do this supernatural stuff on the side, and at some point they connected. And I kind of googled a bit about the series because I guess it's a series which I didn't know about, and it's about kind of like myths and legends and kind of solving them. And so like in Tokyo Xanadu, like there's these rifts that start appearing and you kind of have to like investigate them and fix them, and that's kind of what it is. And I love the plot. I thought it was kind of cool. I really love the thing that Trails does where like they have an ending, and I won't go into specifics, but there was an ending and it was kind of sad, but after you go through the ending there's a specific situation that happens, and if you react to it you can unlock a lot more of the game. There's like an extra, like, I want to say like 5 hours. And then after that, you get the true ending, which is like a lot more happier. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I'm looking into the Tokyo Xanadu New Project, and I don't know if it's, like, I don't think it's a sequel because Okay, yeah, it says right here. So I'm looking at a Gematsu article about it. It's set in Kyoto this time, where Tokyo Xanadu was obviously set in Tokyo. And this new game depicts the story of juveniles who travel around the otherworldly realm known as Xanadu. And you also kind of went around Xanadu in the first game. And while it shares the same world as Tokyo Xanadu, which is set in the Japanese city of Tokyo, this setting is all new. And it's being treated as a completely new title. So I think it's just going to be in the same universe, but it's going to have zero connections with the previous ones. Maybe, we'll see. I don't know. Because, like, technically, Cold Steel, Trails of Cold Steel games and Trails in the Sky, they're very separate, but they do connect at some point. So I can see these, if they do well, they may just, like, connect at some point, or they may have Easter eggs to the games. So Tokyo Xanadu maybe referenced in this game. I don't know, but I am really looking forward to it. I really enjoy Tokyo Xanadu. I fucking love the Trails games, and any more I can get from Neon Falcom, especially in the style of game, I'll love. I'm very interested in them because they're saying it's all the game systems are built from the ground up. I don't know what that means. So does that mean like it's not gonna be like Trails at all now? Does that mean the combat's gonna be different? Because it was real-time combat. It was real-time combat, and it was very East-like in the sense that it felt very arcadey. As in, like, if you really want to, you can just like spam and get through battles, which I love because like when I'm playing these games, I don't really want to be too strategic when it comes to real-time battles. So I literally remember there were some bosses where I was able to get through like in 10 seconds because I just had like a lot of like ultimates or whatever stored, and I just fucking spammed all of them and just like spammed the boss, and I was able to beat it. And so like I wonder how different the combat is gonna be. I wonder how different it's gonna look, etc, etc. But yeah, I think that's all I'll talk about because there isn't much to talk about. They did release a teaser trailer, which is kind of like just going through like abstract numbers and text, and it shows like some characters fading in. I'm assuming these are all new characters because I don't recognize any of them. But yeah, Tokyo Xanadu New Project is what it's called, and I don't think they have a date as of yet either. It does say they're celebrating the 10th anniversary, and since the original came out in 2015, I assume this is probably going to come out in 2025 because that is 10 years. But yeah, Tokyo Xanadu is a JRPG I'm looking forward to, and after that, we can move on to our next segment, which is JRPG news or announcements that I think are cool. So like usual, the news I have is sourced from Gematsu. That's where I pretty much get all this JRPG news. Now, I have a lot of small stuff here. I'm not sure if I'll get to it. Let me just go over some stuff real quick. One of them I already talked about. Tokyo Xanadu New Project was announced. That is a thing that is happening. Won't talk about it more because I just did. Another one is Final Fantasy 16 PC is almost done. Apparently, it's in its optimization stages, and a demo will be out for it soon. So it is coming to PC. I don't know why I didn't know about this. This was like the first time I heard about it when I saw this article. But yeah, it is coming on PC, which is great. I love the game. To me, it's like a 10 out of 10. So the more people that get to play it, better it is for the game. And so, yep, that is happening. Final Fantasy 14 on Xbox is coming soon. It's coming out March 21st, which is like barely any time left. It's like 2 weeks. So like, I can't wait to see how that works out because Final Fantasy 14 is fucking doing amazing, and to get a bigger fan base is always a good thing. I haven't played it in a while, but yeah, I've played Final Fantasy 14 a lot. I am currently, I believe, on Stormblood, which is the second or maybe the third newest expansion now. I don't know if Dawn Trolls is out, but yeah, so that's something I have to get back to. But I do love Final Fantasy 14. Another thing I want to quickly touch on is Persona 3 expansion pass announced, includes episode Aegis, The Answer. I don't know what this is because I didn't play Persona 3. I haven't played any Persona games for a long time, at least. I played Persona 5 a bit before. I googled what this is, and apparently in the original Persona 3 episode Aegis in Japan, or The Answer in the West, was an epilogue, and so they just put the titles together for this. I don't really have opinions on this because I haven't played the game, but one thing I did want to mention is I thought it was very weird that from what I googled, it's an epilogue, and I find it weird that they're releasing it now because I would expect an epilogue to happen right away. I don't know like if it's different for other people, but when I play a game, or if I read a book, or if I watch a show, I kind of want the epilogue right away, because if I get it like anytime later, one, I may not go back to it, and two, like I feel like I'm distanced enough from the game where like I just can't enjoy it. Like where if I'm going through the epilogue, I might be like, yeah, well, what happened again in the main story? How did it end? What was this character about? So like, I know it hasn't been that long since 3 Reload came out, but I think it has been long enough where like people might have finished it and just backed away from it, and like now that they have to come back for an epilogue, it's weird. So like again, I don't know about it. My thoughts on it could be completely off the mark, but like at least if I was playing this, I wouldn't want the epilogue to be a DLC. I would want that to be part of the game, and the DLC could be some side story or something. But yeah, that is something that was announced. And two other things that I want to talk about. There is a new trailer for Saga Emerald Beyond. I'm not gonna talk about this too much because I don't really know much about it, but I just wanted to mention it because I don't know much about Saga. I know it's like a popular JRPG series. One thing I was surprised when I did watch the trailer, there isn't much gameplay shown because they keep like fucking transitioning to like text and character art, but I didn't know it was like a 3D JRPG from what it looks like. I thought it was always like 2D for some reason. I don't know if I'm thinking of the wrong series, but like I looked at it, it looks kind of cool. Like I can't really tell what the combat style is because they keep cutting away from the gameplay, but like it kind of has like that system where almost like Baldur's Gate or Trails where like you can see the character art lined up and you have to wait for the turn to come up. That's all I can glean from it. But yeah, I just want to mention there's a new trailer for Saga Emerald Beyond. I think it's highlighting a certain character in the game, and that's why the trailer was out. But yeah, not much more to say for that because I don't really know too much about the series. And the last main thing I want to talk about is something I'm actually pretty interested in since I saw it right now when I was kind of looking up the news, is a game called The First Berserker Kazan. I believe that's the game name. And it's a gameplay trailer, and technically this isn't a JRPG, but because it's a Korean game. But I mentioned in a previous episode, Korean games, Japanese games, Chinese games, as long as they have like a JRPG-ness to them, I will mention them. And this game looks Souls-esque, and I believe this was shown during the Xbox partner preview, and it looks fucking amazing to me. Like at least art style wise, like visually, I love it. I won't go too much into it, but I mentioned like many times in the past, I do not like the aesthetic of Dark Souls or the character designs or anything like that. This game looks really good to me visually, where it's almost like if you took cell shadiness and like made it more realistic. Like I'm looking at like the bad guys fighting. It's like this big like dinosaur dragon looking dude, and like it looks detailed enough where it looks kind of real, but at the same time, like it looks like a cartoon, which I love. The main character, he looks really cool. He looks like very anime inspired. He's like this buff blonde guy with like long hair. And one thing I thought was kind of genius of this game to do, and like I don't know if this is by design, but I feel like it kind of is, where he has blonde hair, and because the environments and the bad guys are so dark, you can see him on the screen instantly. So like sometimes when you play, like I played Lords of the Fallen, which is a Souls type game, and a lot of the times what ends up happening, and it's kind of happened in Elden Ring too, is when you're fighting, and if you're fighting a lot of enemies, you kind of get lost in the action and you don't know what the fuck is happening sometimes, and you kind of lose yourself sometimes. Where with this, because your hair is blonde and is so much brighter than everything else, like as I'm watching the gameplay, like I immediately know where the main character is on the screen, because he's fighting a boss, the camera pans to the left, and I could see like him right away, he's on the right. Like it just translates very well in terms of pointing your eye to what you need to look at. So I think that was like a very good kind of choice I made when designing him, because visually I can see him all the time, and I think that's gonna help with this type of game where it can sometimes get busy. In terms of setting, like I can't really tell like exactly what it is. It looks Souls-esque, where it's kind of like dark. It's in a snowy mountain area. Maybe it's like Nordic or Viking related. I don't know. I'm just pulling that out of my ass. The bad guy, I like the bad guy design. Honestly, I've mentioned this where like this. I'm not a fan of the Souls design where like they're like these very grotesque, weird, fucking eldritch looking creatures, and they kind of look like a mishmash of like weird body parts. Where this one, it looks more like classic JRPG where they're dragons. I think they look like dinosaur dragon dudes with weapons. They're simple, where like they're not too convoluted, but they're a thing. Like they're like a dragon in this case. They're like a type of thing, which I like. It just works for me. Their battle style seems cool. Like he's fighting this one dragon boss who's using a lance, and he's fucking like spinning the lance, stabbing the main character, shooting him with it. I think this game looks fantastic. Honestly, I'm not the best at. I'm not. Let me not even say that. I'm not good at Souls games. I suck at them, which is why I can't really ever finish them. My favorite Souls game that I played, which I didn't finish, was Code Vein, because similar to this, it was more JRPG-esque. It was more like an anime style. I know technically from games are JRPGs, but like I consider these more JRPG, at least visually. And so I'm gonna keep my eye out for this. It looks very cool to me. I guess one thing I read about it was shown at the Xbox partner preview, so I don't know if this is gonna come to PlayStation. I mostly play on PlayStation, but even though I have a gaming PC, so like we'll see what happens to this. But like I think this was like the main piece of news that I wanted to talk about, because visually it looks interesting, combat wise it looks like Souls. It's running well, which I like. I've noticed like in some trailers they usually show games running like shit. This looks like it's running perfectly well, and so I'm very interested in this game, because we have had like different Souls games or like more Japanese inspired ones like Neo and stuff, but those still take like the route of just looking realistic. which I'm hoping games stop doing that at some point. Like, especially AAA games. Like, why are we always trying to strive for realistic? Stylize your game like this, and I feel like it's not going to age as fast, and I can see this game like looking beautiful like in 10 years. So hopefully this game does well and is interesting, and I'm going to keep my eye out for it. And in terms of the news, that's pretty much it. I guess like let me just like rattle off these last three. I won't talk about it all, but Rise of the Ronin had a story vignette trailer. Grandia HD Collection is coming to PS4 on Xbox March 26th. Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin is coming to PS4 on June 14th. Those are smaller things that I was going to talk about before I found kind of the bigger stories. And so, yeah, I just want to mention those right at the end in case you're interested in any of those. And now that we're done with the JRPG news, let's move on to the JRPGs that are releasing this week. Now, in terms of the JRPGs that are releasing this week, and like always, I am sourcing these from icicledisaster.com. And the week in question is March 10th to 16th. There are none. There's no JRPGs that are releasing this week, unfortunately. I checked icicledisaster.com. There's nothing. I checked RPG site. There's nothing. Except, I'm only going to talk about this game because there was no other releases. It is not a JRPG, really. I think it's a German-made game. It is a game called Rainbow Moon. And I think it's a game that's already out on different systems, but it's coming out on Switch on March 15th, which is in 2 days from when I'm recording this. So the only reason, again, I'm bringing this up because like there's nothing else. And I'm looking at the gameplay right now. It does look like a JRPG, kind of. It kind of looks like it. I don't think this is a mobile game, but it looks like a mobile game. The animations of like the dude walking are very like 1.5 times speed, as if he's from a mobile game. I'm kind of like mimicking it right now. The enemy animations are very mobile game-ish, but it is a JRPG. He's going around, he's fighting like these enemies. He has like this hometown he was at, buying potions and shit. So yeah, it's like an isometric 3D game, if I had to explain. Like if you look at it, when you look at it, you'll be like, yeah, this is like a mobile game. That's how it looks. That's like the best way to describe it, honestly. Even though that may be a bit reductive. But I'm looking at combat now, and it's kind of like grid-based combat, which is cool. I didn't know that. I thought it was like a real-time thing, so no. Or like, no, not real time. I thought it was turn-based and you just use attacks, but it is grid-based, more like tactical JRPG-esque style. So yeah, if you're interested in this, check it out. It's called Rainbow Moon. It doesn't look bad, honestly. Like, I can see myself, like, if there's like nothing else to play, I would like maybe try this out. But yes, and at least from the comments, everyone seems hyped on it, so it's probably has some kind of fan base for this. But yeah, Rainbow Moon, technically not a JRPG, but just brought it up because nothing else is releasing this week. And that's all for the JRPG releases this week. So let's move right on to the segment of a JRPG mechanic that I want to talk about. Now, this isn't too much like a JRPG mechanic, but something that when it happens in a JRPG, I am happy. And that is a main character that has a personality, that has dialogue, that is usually voiced, that is a character. And the reason I'm saying that is because I feel like some JRPGs, you don't see it as much now, but like at least like back in the day too, it was very common in JRPGs for the main character just to not have like any character. Like it was usually just like a person that didn't talk, that didn't, have any opinions on anything happening in the story, that usually was very stoic. You didn't really see any personality from them. And I'm very glad that we're kind of stepping away from that because I just think those characters are so fucking boring. And the only place I can see that these days are games where like the main character is one that you're supposed to pretty much customize and make your own. So like if you're playing a JRPG and you get to make the character and customize to how they look and all that's fine, because I guess I understand the reason for why that happens. I'm still not a fan of it. Whenever a JRPG comes out and they mention like, oh, you get to customize the character to be anything you want, I get kind of less excited because that means there probably isn't that much plot importance for the character. Or well, there can be plot importance, but there isn't going to be like anything character specific where like, I keep bringing up the Trails games, but like when you look at the Trails games, each of the main characters have a very definite character. They have very definite personalities. They have very definite opinions. The way they act, they talk, they interact with people. Like they are a character in their own world, and I am just there to play as them. Whereas with other games, it feels like that character was made just for me to play as, and that's all. Like they don't even need to be in the story sometimes. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. Characters that are their own characters in games, and main characters specifically. And I think the best examples of this are honestly from the games I'm playing right now. Zack, Cloud, they are definitely characters in their world. They have definite personalities. I love Zack as a personality. He's very outgoing. He's very different from Cloud, who is more stoic. I just think those two are like perfect examples of this. If you want to talk about other games that I play, Rain from Trails of Cold Steel, I love him. Lloyd from the Trails of Azure series, Estelle, Trails in the Sky, Sora from Kingdom Hearts. That's like a very early example from my life, which I thought about. I'm like, yeah, Sora's a fucking amazing main character. He's not like anything like those older characters which didn't talk or have personalities or were too stoic. So I think there's some of those are great examples. An example I want to talk about that's kind of on the line of like where I would think is something I wouldn't like, but I'm fine with, which is the East series with Adel. I've talked about this in the past, but East is a series, Adel is the main character, and each game is just a different adventure that you go on. It's weird. He technically doesn't talk in the game. Like as you're playing, you'll never hear him speak really, or like have any dialogue. But the reason it's okay is because in universe, he does talk. Like he is actually talking, and he has opinions, and he has a personality in the games, which I actually like. Where like you'll be like, you know, in a conversation, and like people would be like, oh, you're trying to be a wise guy, huh, at all? Because he has a personality. Like he is actually talking in the conversations, and once in a while they'll give you a choice to say a dialogue, so you'll see kind of what he would say there. So like he's I think he's a special case where like he definitely is a character that has a personality, and he is talking in the world. It's just that they decided to take the gameplay mechanic of the old times where like they're just not going to voice him for some reason. Like I can see in the future them making a East game where like he is fully voiced and he has dialogue and it's completely fine. Actually, funnily enough, there actually is a mobile game for East, which I used to play, where you make a custom character, and Adel is in the game like as an NPC, and he does talk, and he has a character, which was very weird to see, because like usually, at least to the player, he is silent. So like that is a thing. So technically they have done that. So yeah, Adel is an example which I am okay with, because he is a character with a personality, and in my head he has a very like goofy personality. It's just that in terms of gameplay, they just decided not to make him talk, which hopefully that stops happening. I noticed this in Trails of Cold Steel 2 when I first played that game, the first one, where I was playing as Reen, and I would notice there'd be like sections of the game where they just wouldn't voice him randomly, and I don't know what that was about. And so I googled it, and apparently, yeah, they just didn't feel the need to voice him in some sections of the game, because yeah, at the time, like main characters of JRPGs didn't really have voices, and in the version that I would play specifically, it was actually a version where they did give him more voices than the original. So in the original, he was voiced even less, and so like it's very weird when you think about it that like, yeah, even though if you play the Trails of Cold Steel series, Reen is a fucking character. Like he has a lot of, you know, cool moments. He has a personality. He has a lot of backstory. He is his own character to the max. But like there are some sections of the game, at least the first one, I like where he just isn't voiced, and this is very weird. But yeah, he at least has dialogue, which is fine. So yeah, that is something I also want to mention. And in terms of bad examples, the reason why I brought this up is because mainly like games like I'm talking about like Pokemon. Like in the past, like when I used to play that as a kid, it was fine for when I was a kid, but especially now, like when I play Pokemon, like I'm kind of annoyed that like each of the characters that you get to play as don't really have a character. Like I don't really feel like a character when I'm playing Pokemon, and it's even more like apparent with the modern games, because your Pokemon main characters don't even have a look anymore. You get to fully customize them, which again I'm fine with. But like especially in the older ones, like you know how the Soul Silver main character looks like, you know how the Emerald Green or whatever main character looks like. But they're not characters. Like they're not, like they don't have a personality as much as you might want to, you know, give them a personality or imagine they have a personality. They don't talk in the games. They don't really have any specific actions they take. They don't have any opinions they have. And so like that's just a thing that I'm not a fan of in games. And one last game I want to talk about, and I want to talk about this from a perspective of like I'm just not sure which path they take, and it's Persona. I'm very curious about, and is one of the reasons I want to play the game is I don't know which path they take, because I played 10 hours of Persona 5, as I mentioned last episode, and from what I could tell, it was a path of the path that I don't like, where I don't think the main character ever talked. It was a silent protagonist. It was a stoic protagonist, which I'm really not a fan of. It didn't seem like he had a personality or a character. Now, whether that changes throughout the game, I don't know. But in the 10 hours I played, it seemed like the bad side of this case, where like he just did not have any character. And so like when I played Persona 5, like I immediately like did not give a fuck about the main character. I was attached to the other characters, like the other people in my gang. Morgana had personality, but the main dude, I can't even remember his name. I know Joker is one of his, I don't know if that's his name, but like I really didn't care about Joker. And so like I'm very curious to see, like, is that a thing that stays throughout the game? Is that a thing that is apparent in the other games too? Because if I play Persona again, or when I'm going to play Persona again, I'm going to play Persona at some point, I'm definitely going to try a different game. The game I think I'm going to play is Persona 4, because at least based on the covers, that character looks the least stoic from them. I think he's like kind of, I can't remember what he's doing, but he's kind of looks more like an enthusiastic character, so I want to see how he's handling the game. I could be completely wrong. He could be a voiceless stoic character too, but I pretty much just chose Persona 4 based on the main character because Persona 3 looks kind of similar to Joker, honestly, from the picture I've seen. I am basing this off like the most like surface level shit. I'm just looking at the cover art of the game and basing it on that, not from actual gameplay or anything. But from the first 10 hours of Persona 5, it didn't seem like he had too much of a character, and so yeah, Persona is just a game series that I don't know where it lands in this case. Where is it a main character that's personality and story, or is it just like no, like it's just like a nameless voiceless character that you just get to embody and become. So yeah, that's pretty much all I want to talk about in terms of the main character that's voiced with a personality in games. It is something hopefully more JRPGs do, and hopefully we do not go back to the era where main characters did not have a voice or character. And yeah, and from there, let's just move on to the final segment of the podcast, and it's a segment that is planned to be short. It sometimes it's not too short, but it is my JRPG casual top list, where pretty much I'm going to give you a top list that is related to JRPGs. I want to give you the entire list. I may give some points here and there to support it, and then we're gonna go away. That'll be the end of the podcast. And this week the top list is going to be the top JRPG main characters, and the reason I'm doing this is because of the last segment where I talked about main characters. So pretty much I'm going to give you my top 3 main characters in JRPGs, and like every week I'm going to mention this is a casual top list. What that means is I literally just thought of the first 3 characters that popped in my head that I liked and made the list. Can there be other characters that would be on this list if I thought about it for more than 5 minutes? Maybe, but I just put these characters, and there's heavy recency bias probably, but let's get into it. And my list is: number 3 is Zack from Final Fantasy Crisis Core, number 2 is Sora from Kingdom Hearts, and number 1 is Reen. Now, in terms of points, there's really nothing to go about. One kind of like similarity between all 3. They're not story characters. They all have very strong personalities. Reen probably least so, but he is number 1 for a reason, which I'll go into. But Zack is a very outgoing type. He has a very clear goal of him wanting to be a hero. You kind of see him in the story as a junior, kind of as an underling to kind of like Angio and the other first soldiers, and you get to see him kind of as a senior later in the game when he is first class. And so like you kind of see a lot of Zack's journey and the type of character he is, and you see him through some low moments and some high moments, and so I think you get a very good a picture of Zack throughout the game, and he just is a likable character. Like, I don't know if you can play the game and say you don't like Zack. I think he is a pretty charismatic character, and that's why he's at number 3. At number 2, we have Sora, and a lot of his points of why I like him is pretty much like Zack. I will say like the only points over Zack are he's probably more like positive and like upbeat and outgoing than Zack. And the main point over Zack is Sora just has objectively more games to like give him character, and that's why he's above Zack. Zack literally only has Crisis Core, where Sora has pretty much most of the Kingdom Hearts games. And I really like that you kind of get to see Sora grow up from, you know, Kingdom Hearts 1 to where he's at now. You definitely see him at his low points in games. I really like what they did with his character in Kingdom Hearts 3, where he's kind of like depressy, he doesn't know what to do, he kind of thinks he's weak, and then obviously what happens with him at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 I think is super interesting. It kind of really shows a lot of his character too, and so that's why Sora is number 2 and why he's above Zack for me. And number 1 for me is Reen. And honestly, very similar points to the other 2. I think like Reen is just like a very outgoing character. He has very clear goals. He's kind of like a goofy, funny character too in some ways. And honestly, the reason he's number 1 is because his character is just so well defined, and you get so much of him in the Cold Steel games. You start off with him in high school, and then as you go through the series, you kind of see him get older, and by the 4th game, he is a teacher, and so you kind of get to see him in this kind of underling role where like you're a student in the school, and then you see where he has students of his own. So you kind of see the dynamic of that and how he interacts with them, how he still interacts with his friends who he was friends with while he was in school, and things of that nature. You have very cool plot points with him, like learning his backstory and what his lineage actually is. You have mysteries where he has like this specific power and you don't know where it comes from, and you later learn the plot point that gave him that power, and it's very fucking cool and is revealed. And so I think Reen just has objectively more under his belt compared to the other characters in terms of like where he has story, and I think Trails just does a better job of giving kind of plot to the characters, where like no diss to Sora. I like Sora, obviously. I love Sora, that's why I like the Kingdom Hearts games. But like when I played through the Kingdom Hearts games, I never once was like, oh, Sora is my guy. I love Sora. He's my favorite character. I like him as a character, but like Sora was never the reason why I was into Kingdom Hearts really. But with the Reen, when I'm playing through the Cold Steel games, I definitely had moments where I'm like, Reen is my guy. I really like him as a character. He was definitely my top 2-3 characters probably in the series. And so like, and even if you look at all the main characters in the Trails games, like Reen, Lloyd, Estelle, yeah, pretty much those three from the ones I played. I like Reen the best. He's just my favorite. And partly because I just like him personally, but also because you get to spend the most time with him because he has the most games. And so because Reen has had more games and he's had the potential to have more development, that's why he's at number 1 for me on this list. So once more, number 3 is Zach, number 2 is Sora, and number 1 is Reen. And that's going to finish this episode of Spill the Tearal. This was Spill the Tearal episode 6. Hopefully you enjoyed. Again, like I always say, if you have any opinions on the top list I gave, let me know down below. If you have a favorite, least favorite, if you think my list is shit, let me know down in the comments below. If you want me to put this podcast on more audio services, like I mentioned at the start of the podcast, let me know down below too. Let me know if you do listen to audio services. I am curious if like anyone who watches this listens. I guess you wouldn't watch it if you listen it, so maybe that was a dumb question. But yeah, if you're interested in like listening to this instead of watching it, all the links are in the description. I should have all the audio services there. And at the bottom of the list, I also have an RSS feed, which potentially I think the way it works is you should be able to paste that in any podcast app and it should show up anyways if you can't find it. So yeah, you should be able to search Spill the Tearal on your podcast app. If you can't find it, try the RSS feed. And if that doesn't work, let me know down in the comments and I'll try to figure that out for your specific service. But yeah, that was episode 6 of Spill the Tearal. Another long one based on my recording time. Hopefully I see you guys next time for episode 7. Peace.